In this podcast episode, Tucker Carlson provided an in-depth analysis of the vice presidential debate, featuring Senator Mike Lee of Utah as a special guest. The discussion revolved around the performances of the candidates and the broader implications for the Republican Party and American democracy. Carlson begins by highlighting the unexpected nature of the debate, noting that predictions had favored Tim Walz, who was seen as likely to win. However, the actual event turned out to be a significant moment for J.D. Vance, who Carlson describes as the future of the Republican Party. Vance's performance was characterized by his articulate and composed demeanor, which stood in stark contrast to Walz, who Carlson and Lee criticize for being unprepared and lacking substance. Senator Lee praises Vance for his emotional control and ability to maintain composure despite facing aggressive questioning from the moderators. He emphasizes that Vance's intelligence and reasoned responses made him a formidable candidate capable of resonating with voters. In contrast, Walz is portrayed as someone who struggled to answer questions and mischaracterized his own record, particularly regarding controversial legislation related to abortion. A significant portion of the discussion focuses on the role of the media in shaping public perception and the narrative surrounding the candidates. Carlson and Lee criticized the moderators for their apparent bias and lack of objectivity, suggesting that they acted more as advocates for the Democratic Party than impartial journalists. They argue that the media's failure to hold Walz accountable for his record and statements reflects a broader trend of partisanship that undermines the integrity of political discourse. Carlson points out that the media's approach to the debate is indicative of a larger problem, where they prioritize narratives that align with their ideological beliefs over factual reporting. This, they argue, contributes to a growing disconnect between the political elite and the American public, who are increasingly aware of the media's biases. The conversation also delves into immigration policies and their impact on American society. Carlson and Lee discuss the implications of Walz's policies, particularly his approach to housing and the influx of migrants. They criticize the notion that increasing diversity through immigration is inherently beneficial, arguing that it can lead to chaos and a lack of cohesion within communities. Lee highlights the need for practical solutions to the housing crisis, suggesting that the federal government should sell surplus land for affordable housing. He criticizes the current administration's failure to address the root causes of the housing crisis, which he attributes to a lack of effective governance and an over-reliance on federal intervention. Throughout the discussion, both Carlson and Lee express concern about the consequences of federal policies on American families and communities. They argue that many government initiatives, particularly those related to immigration and housing, have exacerbated existing problems rather than providing meaningful solutions. Lee emphasizes that the federal government often acts as a poor steward of resources, leading to mismanagement and inefficiency. Carlson points out that the current administration's approach to immigration has resulted in a significant increase in the number of non-citizens in the country, which he argues could have long-term implications for American democracy. He expresses concern that these policies could lead to a one-party state where the interests of the American public are sidelined in favor of a new electorate that is dependent on government support. A recurring theme in the conversation is the perceived threat to constitutional principles posed by the current political climate. Carlson and Lee discuss how the Democratic Party's approach to governance often undermines the foundational principles of the Constitution, particularly regarding individual rights and the balance of power. They express concern that the party's push for policies such as court packing and the erosion of the Electoral College reflects a broader disdain for the constitutional framework that has governed the United States. Lee articulates a belief that many politicians, particularly within the Democratic Party, are increasingly willing to disregard the Constitution in pursuit of their political objectives. He warns that this trend could lead to a significant shift in the balance of power, ultimately diminishing the rights of American citizens. As the discussion draws to a close, Carlson and Lee reflect on the future of the Republican Party in light of the debate and the broader political landscape. They express optimism about the potential for candidates like J.D. Vance to reshape the party's direction, emphasizing the importance of articulating a clear vision that resonates with the American public. Lee notes that Vance's background and experiences uniquely position him to connect with voters who feel disillusioned by the political establishment. He argues that Vance's commitment to addressing the concerns of everyday Americans could help revitalize the Republican Party and restore its relevance in contemporary politics.